So jazz can seem quite complex, but you can take it from this to this, with Luca's easy steps, because Luca's really good at making it sound like you're a jazz player. Where would you say it's fair to say that you're not a jazz player?
I would say that's more than fair. I am not a jazz player. I started off as like a lot of other guitar players, being into classic rock, and then found guys like B.B. King and stuff like that later on.
Yeah.
When I was quite young, and then I don't play jazz or bluesy rock stuff these days.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, for sessions, for recording sessions or live sessions, and depending on who you're working with, you need to either sound more bluesy or more jazzy. And today we're talking about how to bridge the gap a little bit more. Because some guitar players who are more rock focused or blues focused, they maybe have like a bit of a mental block about, oh, how do I get into the jazz world? But you can kind of, as you said, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of show you some kind of tips on how you fake it till you make it. It's not fake it because they're actual real tips, but like if we take blues and rock, it's really easy to get stuck in that box of like, how do I expand upon that? So even if you're not necessarily interested in playing jazz, there's so many great things that we can look at that means that your vocabulary increases.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, with these kind of steps, it's jazz, but it's also, you can play maybe better soul or funk or hip hop even, you know, like jazz kind of does open the door for quite a lot of things.
And it's quite easy, which is quite fun. So let's start with tone. How would you start with tone?
I would start with, so if you take a blues tone or rock tone, I'm thinking overdrive or distortion, and I'm thinking quite loud, maybe sometimes, not necessarily harsh, but you know, I'll give you an example.
Yeah. It's funny because I know this video is about more tips for jazz, but immediately I'm like, that sounds great. We could.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is not a video shaming blues or rock in any way.
Not at all.
All of that stuff is great and people love it. This is just simple steps to try something new. So if I show you more how I would go about picking a more jazzy tone.
Yeah, because that was quite bitey. It was very, like, essentially trebly. It's got a little bit of gain just so you could push it. And what pickup were we on there?
So I was on the bridge pickup.
Yeah.
Now I'm switching over to the neck pickup. So yeah, as you say, that was a bit more harsh, maybe you could say, a bit more overdriven as well. There was some overdrive. So for jazz, I would go clean and I'd go warm. You could have a bit of saturation or compression if you want, but I'm gonna go neck pickup. And one thing you can do is also roll the tone knob down, maybe around like halfway, just to get even more of a sort of bassy, warm tone. So I'll just show you what that sounds like.
And this is one of those things where it's so much to be said about finding that, because if you did that on the blues tone, it would still sound great, but you'd be more on the blues focus, where when you have that nice, warm, clean tone, there is an element to the fact that you're, like, sitting next to you here, you immediately played, like, gentler and a little bit more dynamics.
Yeah.
And that is arguably natural from having the guitar, which we'll get to in a second, but also that warm tone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So speaking of which, what's the guitar that you've chosen for this specifically?
So I've gone with the Stromberg Fremont. So this is, you know, Stromberg is obviously a brand that does focus a lot on jazz guitars. But the good thing about something like the Fremont is it's a semi-hollow. It's got two humbuckers. It can do jazz, but it can do, you know, rock, indie, anything. I just picked it because, I like it.
Yeah, great choice. That's tone. That's what we want it to sound like. In terms of actually then the playing, what techniques would you start looking at to bridge into jazz?
Yeah, so one thing I would look at is if you're very used to bending and using lots of vibrato, because if you're a blues player, most likely that's what you do, I would try to transition that into more chromatic notes and slides.
Okay.
So, for example, instead of something like this, you could do... So it's not like it sounds that different. It's not like if you're a blues player, you need to change everything that you're doing. You need to pick a whole bunch of different notes. Those do sound quite similar, but it's just like the flavor, you know? Something like... Just sounds very bluesy to me.
Yeah.
Whereas
yeah, it's just a lot more chromatic.
yeah, exactly. So just try, something you can try is, instead of a bend, just try a slide from maybe the note that you want to bend up to. Just pick the note before that and slide into it. So. The other thing with, if you do want to include some vibrato, which people do, you know, just to add sustain and have that more, the effect of like a voice ringing out and the slight pitch variation. Like a more bluesy vibrato would be what I call like vertical, up and down. So something like. If you want to do that, if you want that note to sustain, just try doing it side to side, and it's a lot more subtle. So that does sustain the note, keeps it alive longer, but it's not so extreme. Just to encompass all those things into some phrases, you can go from to something like.
Yeah, and immediately, like at the top of the video, we said, sounds like jazz. It does sound like jazz, which is quite amazing.
It's like it's a very easy barrier to cross. We're not reinventing the wheel here. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's all lead lines. Looking at soloing and melodies, what about chords and progressing them? Because they're the fun bits to me, anyway.
Yeah, chords are great, and with jazz you can kind of. It's really interesting because the chords that you often see in jazz on a guitar is like kind of just clusters of notes that are all quite close together, whereas initially lots of guitar players first learn, you know, or open chords. They sound great, but they might be a bit too busy and a bit too full for a jazz arrangement.
Yeah.
And also just if you want to sound a bit more jazzy. So the other thing is sevenths and ninths and stuff like that. So to include those in your chord. So if we take a C chord, for example, most people's first way of playing that is either like that, open position, or the bar chord version. So up there or.
Yeah.
You know, and they sound good, but that's a lot of notes to be playing at the same time. So one thing we could do is make it a seventh, so a major seventh in this case. So let's go.
Jazz.
One step further is only try to play a lot less notes. So only the essential ones. So in this case, I'm going to play a C. Then I'm going to play the major seventh, which is the B. And then the major third, which is the E. And then you just play those three.
Nice.
So it sounds tighter and less, just like there's less string noise, less ringing. So it sounds a bit warmer as well. So
yeah, using the slides like we were talking about a second ago.
Yeah. So if you want to embellish your chords, you know, just little movements like that. We chose a song as an example to sort of go through all of these different techniques and stuff, which is Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, which is a great choice because he uses so many different voicings and characteristics, but within pop, arguably funk as well, but it's something that you'd hear on the radio, but is using all of these voices.
And as you know, like how many times did that come up in like a function gig?
Exactly, yeah.
Like that chord progression is C sharp minor 7 to F sharp 7. A over B to E. But if I wanted to play those chords in a jazzier way, so less busy, less notes, you could just play your C sharp minor 7 like this.
And immediately when you play those, what's also nice is that you're playing way up the neck versus way down, which brings out all of those different inversions of voicings that is really nice to explore the neck on, and also kind of helps break out the barrier that I was talking about at the beginning of the video with blues and rock by being in a box. It's suddenly you can break out that box because you're playing that chord sequence way up the neck where you may not beforehand. Yeah,
it's very true. And that's coming on to things called like shell voicings, for example. So that's what I was playing, as you said, like high up the neck. That's a C sharp minor 7, and I'm just playing 3 strings. Yeah. So I'm doing a low E, D string, and a G string instead of having to do the full thing like with 5 or 6 strings. You can play the bassier notes with your thumb, and then whatever other strings you're using with the rest of your fingers. So I'll just show here.
So should we get a loop going with those chords and actually use some of the techniques you talked about earlier for some of the lead lines and improvisation?
So I can show you what that sounds like from a strictly blues-based approach versus a more slightly jazzier approach.
Yeah, sounds good. It's funny because hearing that, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And you can see why it's so easy to get stuck in that world because it just sounds so good. So what would you do to break out of that into sort of jazz?
Yeah, and as you said, it doesn't sound bad. The reason why is because I was just sticking to the pentatonic shape, which is one of the things I'm going to try to break out of now. There's nothing wrong with sticking to the same box, but it can sometimes limit what you do. And I was using a lot of bends there, and that it had a bit of a bluesy flavor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use all the things we talked about before, like chromatic notes, chromaticism, slides, no bending or harsh vibrato. I'm also going to follow the lead melody of the actual song. So obviously it helps if you know the tune. But from there, I'm then going to introduce more ideas. Rather than just starting at 100 and then just going from there, you can start quite simple and then build. And it's a lot easier to then improvise a full solo.
So immediately that felt like you had a lot more places to go. Not that you didn't beforehand, but it felt like you had two different voices and directions essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I find it easier to start slow and then build from there. I was targeting chord notes as well, so trying to emphasize the notes that are playing in the chord that's in the backing track, so you're really expressing more.
Yeah.
And it just fits really nicely with the music.
So if you'd like more videos like this, looking at different tutorials and looking at what these guitars can do, then subscribe to the channel. You can check out this very guitar at stromberg-guitars.com. Thanks for watching.